Some people live one life, and some people live many. Today's guest has done just that. From training with the BBC to stepping into a world of high-risk stunts to becoming an award-winning director, Stuart St Paul has spent a lifetime telling stories from the inside of the action. But everything changed after a devastating onset explosion, and in that moment, the story shifted. What followed wasn't just recovery, it was reinvention. A new chapter built through writing, creativity, and a deeper exploration of what it really means to be human. Now, through his latest work, he's stepping into a different kind of story, one that touches the amputee community, identity, and the line between man and machine. This is a conversation about resilience, storytelling, and the power to rewrite your life. This is Amped Up to 11. Hey everyone, this is Rick Bonkowski. Welcome to the Amped Up to 11 podcast. I have the pleasure of having Mr. Stuart St Paul with us today, coming to us from London, correct?
I am, yeah. And I hope I'm not too much of a phony because I'm not an amputee, although I've suffered some big injuries.
Oh my gosh, that is not what intrigued me about you.
Okay.
When we had that first interaction via email, I thought, man, what a great angle. What a great connection that we could engage and talk about the amputee experience, but through a very, very different lens. And
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about your days as a stuntman. I want to talk about your film career and eventually what led to you becoming, a very acclaimed author. But because I'm an amputee and I'm super curious about, the book that you're launching at the moment, which, by the way, for our listeners is called Strictly Human, available on Amazon at the moment. I believe in Kindle version, paperback, soon to be hardcover as well.
I don't know whether we've done that. I think there is an audio version of it, and I should get it up on Apple Books, but that's just me being lazy at the moment and having other things to do. But
No, I
yeah,
hear you.
it's out
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
but I just want to take a moment really quick because I I took this screenshot last night, and
Oh,
this is
no.
the cover art from Strictly Human. So if you're an amputee, and of course our show is for amputees, their families, things of that
Yeah.
nature. The book Strictly Human, a story of love, loss, and what makes us human. And then there's a descriptor, double above the knee amputee Dwight. Is it Ritier? Am I saying that right?
I can't remember what it is. Is it
Dwight Ritier?
Dwight Ritter. Yeah.
Dwight Ritter. Okay, so let's start over. Double above the knee amputee Dwight Ritter falls in love with his prosthetist. Now, for any amputee, that's a boom, boom, boom. That's a very dramatic opener, right? Falls in
Does it
love with,
happen?
well, not to me, but falls in love with his prosthetist. But is she just looking for the first man to become half human, half robot? Cue the music again, right?
Yeah.
It's excellent. I mean, you've got me, okay?
Okay.
If this was a log line for a movie, I'd be like, okay, I'm in. Let's go.
Right. The
Um,
biggest problem is it takes 5 to 10 years to make a movie, and in that time, this could be real, and the movie would be, "Oh, yeah."
right. No, I know what you mean. Macy has discovered an overlooked artist from the slave era. It is about to rock the art world. The two come together in a crime. Oh boy, there's even a crime involved.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I mean, that in itself has me wanting to immediately jump into we've got to talk about Strictly Human. I know you have a number of other books which I would encourage people to seek out your writing. crime thrillers, all kinds of really interesting, kind of sexy, kind of cool, themes. But, this story in particular, I guess the first question I'd want to ask you is, why a double amputee? How did that enter your consciousness?
Um, do you know lots of people ask how many things enter my consciousness? And I think I've heard you use the term futurist occasionally, where there are some people who literally do have the kind of brains that don't work kind of the way other people's do, and they're more asking what if or how or what could happen, and then you get into that Star Wars era or beyond, and all I was doing was going, okay, I've got this character. He's been with me now through he joined silently and in the background in book 2, and he's been from book 3, and by the time he came to book 8 and he's in a chair, but he's a great guy, he's repurposed his whole career into working in IT tech, and he's the main man, he's like the point guard of the whole of the agency. So Dwight Ritter is the most important person at CSCI, really, but I got bored with the fact that he hadn't moved himself on. He moved my company on and my book and the agency. So I had the other guys say to him, "Look, it's about time you got to see a prosthesis and started to walk again and got out of the chair." So they actually punished him to do that, and he did get up and walk. So once I'd done that, which was book 8 and 9, he goes out on active duty again, effectively. In book 10, I want to do something really different. And you know what? Let's be futuristic again. And what if instead of having, and I know a lot of limbs now are very automated, but what if we actually went real Boston robotics on it and said, let's have half man, half human?
Yeah.
What if?
Yeah, very, very cool. And you're correct because so much of this technology, up until let's say the last like 20 years, was very archaic. It was all very post World War II. And a lot of those sort of clunky, not computer chip sort of driven prosthetics and processors, knee microprocessors, things like
Sure.
that. They really weren't in any kind of real existence. They may have been in some kind of testing phases, but it wasn't something that was really, a shelf item that your average amputee could access. But we are slowly, but surely moving into what you're portraying in this particular piece, which is, the half human, half robot sort of concept. And again, talking about, great, sort of reference in the Star Wars piece of, you know, when I was a kid and I saw Star Wars for the first time, seeing Luke lose his hand and then being given another one. And I think there's this moment in that scene where there's sort of this panel that's opened up in his wrist and they're sort of checking, the function of his hand. And there's actually a robot performing that maintenance on him. So there's a droid involved. He's got this robotic hand. To me, that was so fascinating. Like, wow, what a cool idea of what the future holds. But then you fast forward and a lot of these things, whether you're talking about osseointegration, which is coming on very strong in the US right now, and many of the manufacturers of prosthetics are employing a lot of these technologies now. So it's really just a matter of time before this concept, where you have this sort of fusion of both, where it just these
Yeah.
limbs just become an extension of you. It's no longer like something that you don, but it's surgically part of your body.
Well, I think the word even saying it's surgically part of your body in a way harks to the past because I think that integration is going to become so much easier that we're going to look at even today's stuff and go, wow, that was yesterday. Because, for example, I did quite a lot of research. And remember, I'm an outsider. I'm literally going, okay, I've got a lot of friends who are amputees. I've got a lot of friends who are in chairs, a lot of stuntmen with injuries so that
Yeah.
they currently not walking. So, yeah, I have people that are currently in the zone as we know it. And I researched it and I was amazed by the intricacy of just knees for walking up and down stairs, how much they'd put into the microprocessors. So in the research, I started to look at actual robots, and we haven't seen what they've got at the moment. And what they've got is beyond scary. I mean, it can do any stand up and do backflips on the stop, standing backflips and land where it stops. And I just thought, how about if we took the whole bottom half of that robot and gave it to Dwight, who is basically above the knee amputee on both legs, but the position I have to put to him is we need to remove what you've still got. We need to go straight up to your pelvis,
Yeah.
and we are going to plate your pelvis and create just sit a robot below it that does everything for you. And that kind of gives you all kinds of problems. Like, firstly, do I want the rest of me cut away? Secondly, how does it connect to my pelvis? And thirdly, does that mean I now have two brains?
Yeah.
I have my brain in my head and my robotic brain,
Exactly.
and all of it starts to get very deeply questionable. And in the book, what happens is, in a way, although this lovely lady who's a real biotech expert has fallen for him as a person, she is seeing him as a target, as a test person. And in a way, her excitement for her career potential has not is above her love potential. So if you look at the chart, her career potential is up here and her love potential's down here. So she's saying to him, look, why don't you try it? But she really wants to move herself on. She sees him because he's fit. He's engaged with walking, let's say, very late on in his amputee stage. He's very comfortable in a chair. So he had to learn to walk. In that case, he's strong enough to learn to be a robot, or have a robot in his second half, in his bottom half. So she's seen him with this potential. Now, what the book does, which is really clever, is have him resist this because he doesn't want to lose his humanity, or so he thinks. He has in his head his own plimsoll line of where that is. So he's down at the bottom. I don't want to do it. And she's at the top. I do want to do it. And then what starts to happen is he falls in love with her. She falls in love with him. She then decides, you shouldn't be doing this because it is too risky. And I like you too much for that. But he's gone the other way and he's now, I'm going to do this. This is my chance, as spoiler alert, a daughter he's not seen since she first saw him as a blast victim
Mm.
and hasn't seen her since. A young girl, must be about 11 or 12 now. It's his first chance to be able to go back to her and say, look, hey, it's dad. I'm walking. I can jump. I can leap. I can do all of that. And he now wants to go forward and do this, but the his biochemist, human prosthesist doesn't want him to do it now.
Yeah.
So the book swings the other way,
Yeah,
and the daughter
the
becomes a
conflict sounds fascinating to me
yeah,
in terms of physical, mental. So much of your creativity and your imagination, really intrigues me, which is, why I feel that your story is so relevant. And I do believe that there's some connective tissue, obviously, between the earlier parts of your career, what you were exposed to, going through a trauma yourself, and then coming out on the other side of that and saying,
yeah,
well, I think writing is going to be part of my healing process, and it's going to allow me to keep exploring these creative spaces. So thank you for indulging me and allowing me to put that on the front end of the interview. Because
yeah.
if you were to read my notes right now, you'd be like, hey, mate, Rick, all that's at the end. It's at the end of your interview. And I was looking at this morning, and I thought, yeah, I think I'm just going to ask him right off the bat about
Do you know
about Strictly Human coming
Yeah.
to your
You know, Rick,
bookstore.
there's a song that used to haunt me when I was writing the character of Dwight, and I know I've got friends who are amputees, as you'll expect, and their loss has not always just been the limbs; it's been family afterwards. And in my head, every time I wrote Dwight Ritter, I had in my head, "Ruby, don't take your love to town," the Kenny Rogers song.
Hmm.
It punished me all the time that he was losing his wife, that this guy lost his wife and has never seen his child since that day. So for me, this book was about getting that back as well. And uh, that can mean so much because Dwight now it could be more than human, and that's the future.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's very thoughtful. And, I would think having, knowing people in your orbit that, had limb loss or limb difference was certainly helpful. But I would think for someone like yourself coming into this space, there's always going to be that level of kind of like you kind of let it slip out, in the beginning of the interview. Like I feel like a phony. And what I would welcome out there in the community, um, encourage people to engage this experience, encourage people to learn about this experience. It's a very unique and very often extraordinary sort of journey that people who have to make these adaptations, these sort of recalibrations in their life, it speaks to a lot of creative forms, whether you're talking about film or you're talking about writing. I find for myself, becoming an amputee sparked a ton of creative energy in me. And not that I didn't have some of those skills, but sort of going through a trauma or having to deal with that evolution of the human experience and going a completely different direction sort of gets you in that very reflective space. And I think if you allow those feelings in and you embrace them, it's really extraordinary what comes out of you when you've gone through something like that. And the backstory on you is super fascinating. I mean, you've lived a pretty incredible life. I am a huge uh, like film fan, movie. I was a movie kid. I'm a movie adult. Film to me, it's sort of like it's like the holy grail to me. It's like it's what documents our history. It's such an important art form to me, and it's so accessible, which I really appreciate. But you becoming a stuntman, that just really gets my curiosity going because
Yeah.
really in truth, I've never met a stuntman before. And I'm always thinking, well, how does that come about? Because I know you train with the BBC, but it was like, okay, how did that transition into, becoming a stuntman and finding career space by doing
Yeah.
that?
Okay, I'm gonna knock this one out the park very quickly because I think this is kind of the boring part of my career, but I understand the fascination there. So I had a dream to be a radio presenter, and in England back in the late '60s, we only had very conventional radio stations, and the pop radio stations were run by ships offshore called pirate radio stations. They're very big in Britain. They also had pirate radio stations in Israel, very many other places. So my dream was to become a DJ on a pirate radio ship. Turn forward because of that. This is another thing about necessity as the mother of invention, which is kind of where you were hitting with if you have to approach your life from a new angle. Right, that's where you were earlier.
Yeah.
So I was 14, 15, wanted to be a DJ. I taught myself electronics. I built a radio desk at home, and I DJ'd to myself every night. So I was a geek of the first order. You know, I could have had a wardrobe full of anoraks, but I did have I gave myself that radio tone, I gave myself a great show reel, I had everything I needed, so I pitched to BBC when I was only 17, and they picked me up and trained me in radio. It was obvious I wasn't gonna get on the air because I wasn't a star, I was such a youngster. So after 3 years with them, and I must have been early 20s, I went off. I did a little time with one of the record companies, Capitol Records. I stayed with them for a year, but then I joined 2 other radio stations doing the breakfast show. So I did 10 years in radio, and my dream was to go back to Radio 1 to do the national breakfast show. Somebody
Mm.
else got it, and in those races, there's only ever one gold medal winner. But I was lucky because I was offered a great runner-up prize, which was a TV show that came out about a radio station, and they offered me the part as the radio DJ. So by default, in 1980, I still was quite young, 22. I became an in vision on television DJ at a radio station and also acting all of the other stuff I had to do around the part twice a week on a soap, which was going out in the UK.
Oh, that's
So I moved
interesting.
from radio to television.
Well, it's just funny that you were trying to be a DJ and you ended up acting as a DJ.
Absolutely, and I hated it. Hated it. Hated acting. And, if you look at the logic of what you do, because you're a radio presenter, you'll get this straight away, is I opened the microphone every morning, and apart from the playlist of records, I could say what I wanted, ask what I wanted, and within broadcast rules, do what I wanted. But as an actor, they were all of a sudden they were going to me, "Can you stand there and say that and say it this way?" And that was so against my training.
Yeah.
It just didn't work for me. And then I looked at the way actors were pushed around. I'm going, I don't want to do this. I don't even want to work in television, really. I want to work in movies if I'm going to be an actor. And you go, but is that likely with the training I had, which wasn't in that direction? So I'd been an athlete. I'd fought for Britain nationally 3 years running in judo. I was pretty good at taekwondo. I was a runner. I swam for my local district, played basketball for the district. So I did a number of sports to a high level. And a casting director once said to me, "You know what, Stuart? You're wasting your time trying to be an actor. If you became a stuntman, with your looks and your youth and your enthusiasm, you will get parts thrown at you." And I just went, "What? Okay, I hadn't thought of that." And I trained and changed, and in 1981 became a stuntman. And I was still only 27, which was an old stuntman, but still quite young in career terms to make a change.
Yeah.
So that is exactly how it happened.
And what's the craziest thing that ever happened to you as a stuntman?
Well, you listen, I can list a lot of them, and they're all different. And I know the one you're gonna get round to at the end because, at the end of my career, I suffered a blast injury,
Yeah, I know that.
and I was very ill, and it required brain surgery. So that is something which you don't expect to hit you on a film set, but only too many people do get injured on film sets because the public forget it's a factory floor. It's where we make stuff. And if you're on a big war show where we do use explosives, we don't use live bullets. We shouldn't. I know some people have suffered from that, so it does happen. But we certainly the explosions are live, and I can talk to you more about that in a minute if you wish. But it's dangerous and people get injured. Now, I wasn't even doing a stunt that day. I was the senior stunt person of the team. We were in Hungary. There was a Hungarian stunt coordinator on the floor managing the floor. I just sniffed something wasn't right this day, that it wasn't proceeding the way I had planned it with the production designers, the special effects, and all the rest of the team. Something smelt wrong. I went on
Mm.
set. and the most vulnerable cameraman who was nearest to where the incident was going to take place. And this was the beginning. It was the first of a series of 10 explosions. So this was the close up of the real actors in the real truck, camera looking at the windscreen to see them. That's the key, to see them driving as they hit a roadblock.
Oh, wow.
So it's just a small explosion. All it needs to do is cover the windscreen, very small. And then as minute that goes, bosh, we edit, just like you edit sound and we edit pictures. We'll cut to something else much bigger as the camera moves along sideways, but we'll control that so that we've actually got the explosion just in front of lens, between the lens and the camera. We do it with fire wands and all kinds of other little things. But we would into a traveling shot, traveling sequence, a car chase, then a big explosion at the end. I sniffed something was wrong. There was a lot of tension on set. I stood by the first camera and I said, "Look," and this is exactly how it worked out. We were beside the river. If you imagine beside the big old river, which is like got Romanesque walls all the way down the side, and this truck's going to hit roadworks. And I said to the cameraman, "I'm not worried about the explosion. I've seen the test. It lasts the amount of fuel in that explosion, liquid fuel, that's being lifted by a dry deck cord. It lasts for 1.7 seconds. We've timed it on a number of tests. It only reached 10 feet in height. So it will cover your picture frame, your close up of the windscreen, but it's safe. What I'm worried about is the barrel or any of the materials getting entangled in the wheel of the truck. And trust me, I will see that before anyone else. I will see that quicker than anyone else notices something's gone wrong. And if I see that and the truck is out of control, I will announce on my walkie talkie, brakes, stop the truck, but I will be first taking you away from your camera position and walking you behind this really thick stone wall that the truck can't penetrate. And what happened was the biggest explosion I've ever seen in my life. It was like a petrol station had been napalmed by a drop set of bombs going in a long line. There was more fuel, more explosives than anyone had ever imagined, and it came straight at me.
Mm.
So, yeah, that was pretty pretty memorable in the way,
Well,
but it wasn't stunt, it was a special effect.
yeah, I mean, we can rank that as a crazy situation. So after that blast, was it lights out for you waking up in a hospital?
It wasn't lights out because I didn't know my head was on fire. I was covered in glue. I don't know what
Oof.
you'd call it there, but like sticky glue, because that was being used to throw bits in the air. It should never have gone as far as it. I was 40 feet away, 40 feet away from a measured 10-foot explosion. So my head had been covered in glue and it was on fire. And I didn't know it was on fire because you just don't. It's like when we do simple stunts, like a guy jumping through a window, someone else will check him because he will not or she will not know they're cut from the glass. Their
Mm,
adrenaline's so high, and the pain, your body shuts off the pain for that second, even if you're going to get it later and you get all those phantom pains and horrible pains afterwards. For that moment, it's gone. So you wouldn't know you're cut. And I did not know I was on fire until somebody told me.
yeah.
I was calling for help. There wasn't any coming. No fireman came, no ambulance came. So I had to. I knew I'd be dead within seconds. I took both of my hands and I knew I had to squeeze the flame out by pushing the glue into my head, which is exactly what I did. All the oxygen away. I knew I'd got to get rid of the oxygen. I put the flame out. I was ready to stand to run and jump into the river, which was near if I hadn't got it out. But I got the flame out. My hands were covered in fire and glue. I don't know whether you can still see it, but the white skin on my hands
Mm,
is where it's never grown back properly. So yeah, after that, I was taken quite slowly to hospital. You may ask why, but this is part of. And this so many of your listeners that went through this or are going through this in the same way as therapy after an accident. I've got severe PTSD and I'm having the usual problems with it. I'm being seen by a military PTSD counselor who's I have to say was brilliant, saved my life. And, God, I get a bit emotional when I talk about this sometimes. Uh,
It's heavy.
I'm having the therapy because I've turned into an angry person. But immediately after the accident, I didn't know I was injured, so I was taken to hospital. The reason I was taken slowly, okay, let me explain that. There's only one ambulance on a film set. It's there for safety, it's there in case something happens, but no one expects something as big as that to happen. And 2 multi-million dollar movie stars are in the truck, and they can't get them out of the truck. Now, I can't see this because I'm covered in flame and I'm on fire. The other 2 guys are in the truck. They can't get him out. The door's swollen, it's heated up, the metal's gone torsioned. So they even when they get me to the ambulance, and I'm in so much pain now because my head's burning. They're pouring water on me, but I can feel the burn. There's no flame there, it's the heat. The ambulance can't go because they don't even know whether these 2 guys are alive
Yeah.
in the truck. They don't know what state they're in. And it's not until they get the truck open and the 2 actors out, and luckily they were safe inside, that they then all of a sudden, quite ironically, put on the alarms and a blue flashing light and take me to hospital. And the rest is history. Within 3 months, I was getting quite cranky. I was not a nice person, and my wife had me, um, I don't know what the American word would be for it, but sectioned in the UK. Because my brain, I was just this there was something wrong. I was evil.
Yeah.
What they didn't know, because they were treating me for PTSD, and again, I bet so many of your people have been through this. They hadn't noticed the medical problem. What happened was my blood pressure had gone so high during the fire that, I had not burst blood vessels, but they had gone to the point where they were distorted. And in my brain, on the side of my brain, the blood vessel was varicosed, to say,
Yeah.
to use a right word. And the bulbous bits were hitting the nerve as my heart beat, and it was giving me facial epilepsy and head pains. So I wasn't mad, and it wasn't all PTSD. I was genuinely in pain.
Well, you
And I
suffered
remember
a
them,
serious brain injury.
yeah, and they said to me, "Look, we're gonna put you on drugs. We know how to manage this now. We'll put you on." um, I knew it as Tegretol, but there's a proper chemical name for it. And they said, "What's gonna happen with you now?" And we know because you're now on a road, you're going somewhere, is the pain your body will get used to this drug. So we'll start on 1, you'll be on 2. In the end, I was on 1,600 milligrams of Tegretol a day, plus another drug, which was an A-list drug, 2 horrible drugs, that you have to take. And I was still fitting and falling to the floor with face fits. And at that point, they said, "Okay, drug regime over. You've had a year of drugs. We're beyond that now. We have to operate." And it was just one of those things where they didn't know whether I'd come round or not.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, out of that therapy where you have to write about your emotions and do all of that written therapy and homework, and I did it religiously because I had a family and both of my kids had just got married and I wanted to see this family. So I did the homework, I did the punishment, and it was writing, and that's where the books came from.
Because I was going to ask you what was the turning point, and given that it was a connection for you in healing, that makes a lot of sense, and that's actually
Yep.
a common thread when I hear about people who either struggle with PTSD or become amputees through a traumatic event. Is it usually requires them to sort of redefine themselves, rediscover themselves, and then eventually fall in love with that version as they are. And it's really no longer about mourning the loss, let's say, of who you were, but it's more
Yep.
in the becoming piece. This is my starting point. I'm born today, and here are the things that I want to pursue in this lifetime. And once that engagement occurs and you sort of receive it, that's when someone like yourself, you know, writes all these books and has all these stories and all this creativity is just flowing. Um, it's such a testament to our community, because so often I'll speak to people who are newly um, amputees, and they're entering this community, and they're in that space of, who am I now? Like, I look in the mirror and I don't know who's looking back at me anymore. I don't recognize myself. And so much of what you're describing is that, those first steps in saying, okay, well, this is helping me, this is healing me. Writing is filling the gaps, and it's giving me purpose. And, I think it's a beautiful part of your story. And I just appreciate that you're actually willing to share it. And, given that one of your main characters is, someone with limb loss, has arrived us at that intersection, of life.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's really, really interesting the way different people come to this community, whether it's through story, whether it's through a loved one, a partner. But I thought I read something, and I could be wrong. You had something to do with one of the Aliens movies or something like that?
Yeah, I was the Queen alien
Oh
in
my
James
gosh.
Cameron's Aliens. I was inside
I
that
wasn't going to
monster.
say that because I swear I read that somewhere. And I wasn't
Yeah.
going to say that because if I was wrong, I would feel really stupid. Like,
So
hey,
I'll send you
Stuart, were you the Queen Alien in Aliens?
I'll send you a picture you can put up.
Can you please do
I
that?
yeah, I myself, there were 2 of us strapped back to back, and our arms went out. So my 2 arms and his 2 arms made the 4 arms of the alien, and our hands and wrists were the elbow joint of the alien. So they would
That's
give us,
incredible.
like a stick with a floppy hand on, real old-fashioned filmmaking, um, in our hand, and we would fight Sigourney Weaver or whoever we were fighting. It was normally Sigourney. And literally, I would have James Cameron in my earpiece. He would talk directly to me, and
Hold
I
on
would.
1 second, Stuart. Hey, sir, how are you? We're gonna see you in a little while, okay? Oh, you're good. We're just right in the middle of one. Yeah, it's our
Sorry,
next guest decided
am I
to.
going on too long? Am
No,
I
you're
going on?
fine. No, we just have
Okay.
we have our next guest who's obviously very anxious to get on.
Okay. Well, I hope he
Let's.
can enjoy the
I
stories.
want to revisit this. Hold on a second. Let's back up, and I want you to start. Um, I want you to start where you were describing you and the other stuntman in the outfit. This is
Okay.
like a total geek session for me because I'm a
Yeah.
huge Aliens
Okay.
fan. Um, and this is very self-indulgent.
All right.
Excuse my,
That's all right. I
my
can do it. I'll pick
indulgence.
it up. I'll
Yeah,
pick it up. So there would I was the Queen Alien. I'm inside the Queen Alien, and there's 2 of us inside the Queen Aliens. 1985. We didn't even think it was going to be a big or a special movie. It was just another job.
sure.
And the 2 of us were strapped back to back.
It's
And
crazy.
my 2 arms and Malcolm's 2 arms were the 4 arms of the Queen Alien. And our arms were solid. Our wrist was the elbow joint of the monster. So effectively, we would have a broomstick with a floppy rubber glove on the end,
Uh-huh.
and our wrists would make the arm move. And James Cameron would talk to us. We had earpieces, so I could speak to James. James could speak to us. He was really very definite on what he wanted this alien to look like, and we had a rapport. He understood us as his queen alien, and I could move my hands to what he asked, and I would be hitting Sigourney Weaver with these floppy latex hands on a broomstick by wriggling my wrist. I couldn't see anything, couldn't really see her, but I could take his direction. And we just, after 3 months, we got it. We were puppeteering for him.
Wow.
So recently, Malcolm and I got together as about a year ago. Malcolm does the Comic Con circuit and he
Okay.
signs autographs there. And he said, "Oh, Stuart," he said, "if we could do a picture together, because it's never been done before. We'd never ever done it." He said, "You know, I'll be able to sign these at Comic Con." So we got together. I'll send you the picture in his garden. He was then 82 or 83, and I must have been 70, 71. And the two old men back to back showing exactly how the Queen alien was, which is
I
hilarious,
so
I think.
appreciate you saying that because I hear this, with actors, with, extras, stuntmen, different people that have worked on iconic films, which, Aliens became this like huge hit and really, set a course for obviously James Cameron. But when you say, well, we didn't know like what this was,
You
we're
don't.
on set, it's a job, and they're putting you in this in this
Yeah.
huge, suit, and I would think you're going like, "What on earth is this? Like, what is
Is
this
what is going on? What
what
are they
is
on
this
about?
mo Yeah,
Yeah.
what is this movie
Hey,
about
let me just
exactly?"
pick you up on this because I tell you something here. We don't know what films we're in. We don't know if they're gonna be hits.
Yeah.
But you doing your show, you do not know who you're helping.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
really don't. And, when I heard your show and did some after you emailed and we started talking and I listened to your show, I've gotta do this show because this guy has no idea how many people he's helping,
Oh, that's very
and you
sweet.
don't.
No, I
You can't
appreciate that.
know.
And and the thing about it is, I came to this sort of self-serving. Being a new amputee, I began following people, and I really enjoyed their stories. I liked following them on social media, and if they were kind enough to write an article somewhere or just a short journal piece or something, I was very fascinated with their perspectives and sort of how their lives were developing in their own little journeys as amputees. And it was one of those, gosh, it'd be really cool if I could directly speak to some of my heroes because these people were sort of emerging in my life. They were becoming significant to me, and I wanted to meet them and have an exchange of ideas with them. And bearing in mind, I'm at the very beginning of my own, experience as an amputee, so I have a lot of questions, about adapting to amputee life and the technology, that we've spoken about. How does all this work? And I was just very fortunate that when I started reaching out to some of my people, I had these little crushes on people. Gosh, Stuart, they were so kind. They were so
Yeah,
receptive.
it's it's magic, really, and I I think as well, like you were saying about PTSD sufferers, people who've suffering from depression because something's happened to them.
Yeah,
It's so important. Well, listen, you're lucky if you get a great teacher. It's like being at school. If you get a great teacher, you're lucky. If you get one that's not so good, you have to find your own way through it.
yeah,
But I had a great therapist. I mean, a super great therapist. And his job to me was he said, "Listen, my job is to try and get whoever I'm seeing back into the world, back into the employment circle if I can."
yeah,
Um, but he said, "That's not gonna happen with you because of your age and your injuries are so severe, you're not gonna be managing big disasters on film sets again." I get that. But he said, "What we've gotta do is make you remember the best of your life." So you asking me about aliens is exactly what he told me to do. He told me that I should go out and lecture or speak at functions about my time in the stunt industry,
yeah,
which is how I got on the cruise ships because they love it. I mean, I go on the cruise ships, I talk about aliens, I talk about Batman, Superman, and all the tales behind there and some of the pictures I've got. And I mean, it allows me to see the better side of my career and not have it finish on the accident which ended it,
yeah.
and that's so important.
I think you're right, and I'm at an age now where so many of my friends are either retired or they're thinking about retirement, and some of them are, I guess, in this space of like, this is it, like this is my finish line. And I always say, well, what can you celebrate, first of all, from this huge body of work that you've done over decades? What can you revisit that's very positive? And now that you're turning the page, so to speak, what's next? This is a very, very exciting moment, because
Yeah,
isn't life about sort of reinvention? I want to
it
try
is.
this. And
Yeah,
and people tell me all the time, it's never too late, man. It's never too late. Go do something that you wanted to try when you were young. I mean, you
yeah,
have the opportunity now. You're wiser. Maybe you have some more resources that you didn't have when you were young. You know people, right? Because we all have a network. Once we get up in years, it's like I know people. I can call people. I can get advice. I can utilize my Rolodex, so to speak. And I think that that's kind of the beauty of it, you know, and having gone through, what you did in terms of being, a trauma survivor and someone that's managed PTSD, what would be the advice, that you would give someone today that was struggling with PTSD?
I I think you've definitely gotta look back at the good times and the times that you had, but you've gotta do that actually is not easy because you've gotta find a way of, um, sitting with the fact that they were in the past, and that's a barrier in itself. I did mine through writing. I wrote the book Cruise Ship Heist, which was my first book, and Kieran in it is if you imagine the writing is straight out of therapy, because in therapy you have to write in the first person, how it affects you, your emotions, what happened to you. So the first book is Kieran. He's just been thrown out of the army. We don't know why, and I didn't know that clearly why when I first had the idea, but I gave him the reason that he was helping. His life became too much about helping the kids in Syria as opposed to why he'd been sent there as a member of the military, and he got thrown out of the military. So the book's written in the first person, and it doesn't take my journey. Now they wanted me to write a biography. I didn't want to do that, but I wrote somebody else's life which was very close to mine, and I wrote it in that first person. So I brought all my feelings out through a book.
Mm,
It's a good way of doing it. Storytelling, a book, but you do have to find a way of moving forward. As you read Cruise Ship Heist, you can feel Kieran has got PTSD. You can feel there's stuff in his closet. You are dying. The military guys amongst you will be dying to know what is in his past. And and I think for you to be able to hold back on some of it because it is personal to you, your injury is personal to you, but share what you're going through. For me, that was the way out of mine. So the first book, which is a rip roaring page turner, is me coming out of therapy.
yeah.
And somehow you got to figure out your way of doing it.
Yeah, awesome how you were able to channel that energy in the way that you did, taking something that was very significant in your life and then finding a way in a therapeutic way, but also in a very, very generous way to sort of give that, to the world and say, this is how that feels. Because so much of good writing, it comes from the soul, I think, when you're really able to share the deepest parts of yourself. I think that's when you make the biggest connections with readers. I know that I tend to gravitate towards those types of stories, that type of writing. And I'll say, wow, this really touched a lot of buttons with me. It really created a lot of connective, sort of feelings. And I think that that's just very, very effective in healing in general. Because even if I write something, if I do a blog post or something of that nature, and someone will make a comment to me, or they'll DM me and say, and they'll quote me and say that line right there, that really, really got me. That really, really helped me. That
Yeah.
resonated with me. That was super important to me. And I'm really glad that you said that, because I was struggling to find the words to describe how I was feeling. And and sometimes it's a little strange because I think, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I really felt that way when I wrote it, but gosh, I'm so glad that you feel that way about it.
Mm.
Like, great. And I think that energy is so important, between someone who's, an artiste and someone who can love and appreciate it. So, no, I think that's wonderful. And what a great sentiment in terms of, people that are out there struggling. If someone wants to follow you, where's the best place to do that, Stuart?
I have a page on Facebook. They can find me there. Stuart St Paul. I'm pretty easy to find.
You're
But
all
yeah,
over
I'm
the
on
internet, by the
Facebook.
way.
Yeah, I'm everywhere. So
Yeah. Stuart
by all
St
means,
Paul.
do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic author, amazing career. I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface today. This was a very quick hour for me. Um, so of course I'm going to be following and keeping up on your progress. Please don't be a stranger. I
I
very
was
much
just
appre-
yeah,
I
I
very
was
much
just thinking
appreciate
the
your time.
same term. Yeah. Well, we'll do this again sometime when I don't have to. We don't have to talk about the muddy stuff.
The muddy stuff, exactly. But thank you so much for representing this community in the way that you are. And I would recommend everyone get out there and check out Strictly Human by Stuart St. Paul. I'm Rick Bonkowski. This is the Amped Up to 11 podcast, and I want to wish everyone health and happiness. We'll see you next time.